will be permanently out of ever closer union, never part of a European superstate. There will be tough new restrictions on access to our welfare system for EU migrants. No more something for nothing.
On June 23, 2016, an entire country headed to the unknown. That's the day 17.4 million people in the United Kingdom voted to become the first country to leave the European Union. Ever since then, the event has been called BREXIT, which means Britain exiting from the EU, by a narrow vote of 51.9% to 48.1%. The UK decided to leave, and the agreement is gonna be effective from March 29, 2019. Both Leavers and Remainers have their own reasons. For Leavers, they believe the divorce can address issues on economic and political sovereignty, and especially migrant crisis, as millions of refugees fled war-torn countries across the Middle East and North Africa to big economies such as Germany, the UK, or France. Meanwhile, Remainers voted for future opportunities.
At the heart of that is the single market. 500 million customers on our doorstep. A source of so many jobs, so much trade, and such a wealth of opportunity for our young people.
The question is whether Brexit is good or bad, a new hopeful era, or just a disaster. It's truly hard to answer such a question, but after 2 years of the referendum, Brexit's consequences have already begun. Britain's economy, from one of the farthest, has fallen to one of the slowest, with 2.2% growth in GDP in 2015 to 1.8% in 2016, and has since stagnated. The Bank of England cut interest rates to the lowest level in its 22-year history, from 0.5 to 0.25% after Brexit. The Brexit decision triggered a fall in the pound. The pound lost 10% and 7% of its value against the dollars and euro respectively, at its lowest level in 31 years. This sparked inflation, which has been more than double since 2016. It is also expected that the British will lose more than 10,000 jobs related to banking and finance. In terms of society and politics, Brexit has created a complete meltdown as well. The Prime Minister David Cameron resigned. Levels of xenophobia and racist abuse were rising in the streets of Britain. The vote split along lines of age, education, class, and geography. Everybody was blaming everybody else. People blamed the Prime Minister for calling the referendum in the first place. The young accused the old. The educated blamed the less well-educated.
I consider myself to be European. I consider myself possibly British as well.
I think Britain leaving the EU is going to be, frankly, a bit of a disaster for the country.
It all just seems like a bit of a disaster.
yeah, basically.
I just think it's the worst decision that we will ever make.
The fate of the 4 million people has been uncertain, including the 3 million EU citizens living in Britain and about 1 million Britons living in EU countries. By limiting freedom of movement, people may be fired and get their bank accounts locked, not to mention deportation. However, it's not necessarily the case that the country will suffer from Brexit. Britons have their own right to dream for a bright future in the long run. In the first place, Britain will regain sovereignty. It will take back control of critical decisions on economic and immigration policies, which can stem the continuous flow of immigrants. It will also take £350 million on weekly EU membership fees back and spend on such fields like education and science. Of course, every decision has two sides. No matter how difficult it is, the British will still have to look at the brighter side to move on. Brexit has been approved, there will be no further referendum. The ruling party have some time to negotiate with the EU for optimum deals. And Britons, both Leavers and Remainers have to all respect the decision and work together to tear down the barriers thrown up by the referendum. And then the UK will be back as strong as before. It is still a country with majestic nature. Bustling cities with streams of people or skyscrapers cannot be replaced. Great festivals still attract millions of people. Londoners are still proud of the red double-decker buses and the Wimbledon championships. The biggest football tournament in the world is still going on. The culture is definitely still alive there, regardless of Brexit and its implications. People will get used to the changes and get better. There's one thing that doesn't change. The United Kingdom is still a monument of the world, the land of hope and glory.